It says I'm live. Whether or not it's working, I don't know, because they seem to have changed things on YouTube since the last time I went live. So I apologize for the late start today. There seems to be totally different things. So where I felt pretty confident with my live streaming abilities, I now feel totally out of sorts. So as long as volume is good, as long as video is good, hopefully we're good. As far as I can tell, my audio is working. So, hey, it's working. Okay, good. I don't know what the deal is, but I couldn't figure out how to go live from my phone. At least hooking up to the prior stuff that I had already like set up the stream to happen today. So I couldn't do that, and then I couldn't get it to work on my computer without downloading stuff. So really quick got that all figured out. So hopefully everything is good to go. Welcome to my live stream. This is my 1,000 subscriber live stream. So maybe that's the difference. Maybe once you're in 1,000 subscribers, they change things on you. So yay, we're professional now. I totally don't know how to show that. So welcome. I'm super, super excited. This is pretty fun. I wanted to give a quick update though. One reason I am going live today, other than that I wanted to celebrate 1,000 subscribers with a live stream anyway, is that I did end up getting sick. I ended up getting the big bad sickness, and I ended up getting testing positive for COVID on Thursday. So I was down and out, and I was supposed to go visit my mom. If you guys had seen my recent video, I was supposed to go visit my mom in Alaska this week, and I had to cancel that trip because the day before I tested positive. So I was really, really bummed about that. And I had this like personal, goal that I was never going to get it, which is totally unrealistic. But we ended up, both me and my fiance got it, probably from somebody at his work. So that was a bummer. So that's one reason I'm going live today. I'm still recovering from that. I'm feeling so much better, but I'm not completely like 100% there yet. So I just couldn't until the last couple of days feel like I could put together and edit a video. So I'm like, I'm gonna go live. I'll chat with everybody. It'll be a little less on my plate since I don't feel very good. But also gives me a chance to do my 1,000 subscriber live stream. So there's a little update. If any of you follow me on Instagram at all, you will see that when I got sick, I did actually hit Wonderland as well. So I weighed in at 199.2 in the middle of my sickness, which was like, yay! I feel like total crap, but yay! Since then, yesterday is my normal weigh-in, and I was back up to 201. So I was just like, I got there, but I'm not like consistently staying there yet. I'm still bouncing around like 2 pounds basically, which is like, it's my normal. But what I'm seeing is that I am slowly like, I'll get down a little bit, and then I'll go my up, a pound or two, and then I'll get down a little bit further. So I'm like crawling there. So I feel like that's progress. And the fact that I am not maintaining at 199 isn't surprising, because I had like no appetite and was barely able to function when I was sick. And then I started eating again. So of course my body's like, oh, okay, we're good now. So I'm basically there. I mean, I consider myself, I hit that milestone. Of course, the next step is then to like maintain that. But I am pretty excited that I got there. It shows it's possible. That's all that matters. It shows it's possible. So those are the updates going on with me at this current moment. I was able to reschedule my trip. So one of the positives with not doing this trip right now is that the weather didn't look like it was going to be in my favor when I was going to be in Alaska. It looked like it was just going to get really a lot of rain that whole week. And the hikes that we are looking at are just not quite something that I want to do in really bad weather. I don't want to call them dangerous because they're not dangerous hikes, but there's a lot of like slippery, rocky areas and stuff that people have been known to get injured and things on those hikes if they're not being careful. So if it was like a torrential downpour, we just were not going to go on the hikes. So this allows for me to be able to hopefully get some better weather in the middle of July, which is when I rescheduled my trip to. So that'll be pretty cool. That gives me an opportunity to maybe be able to do both of the hikes that I've been considering. I was really looking forward to spending time with my mom and just like kind of spending a bunch of time outside, doing things that I never really did when I lived in Juneau before. The things that I didn't really have the physical ability or like the motivation to do, doing them now. And so, if the weather wasn't going to be in my favor for that, that was going to kind of take a big chunk of what I was hoping to do on that trip away from me. So hopefully the weather will be good now. And I hope to record those trips, those hikes and everything, just so you guys get to see what I'm doing. I did hear though from my mom that the ice caves that I'm looking at going out to at the glacier might not exist anymore. So a couple of years ago, it sounds like the blue caves that form in the glacier that I was talking about in my last video, those collapsed. I mean, that glacier has been receding for years and very, very quickly. I went to college in Juneau, and just in the 4-year span that I lived there for college, uh, the the glacier receded like crazy. I mean, visually you could see it was just like barely barely there anymore. It used to be something that was like really, really close up that you could practically walk out to, and it's not the case anymore. You have to hike out to it now. And so with that receding and that melting, it sounds like those caves may have collapsed and might not be there anymore. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to see when I get out there. That'll be something that is interesting just in, the aspect of like trying to see what it's like now. It is really a bummer that I allowed myself to potentially miss out on that opportunity. There are other places in the world that I could do that, and so I may look into trying to find that opportunity. But it's really a bummer that I had that in my backyard and that I had that as an option that I could have done at any point when I was in college. And I just didn't have the energy and the motivation to do it. And therefore, it might not be something that I can actually do now. Um, I kind of missed the window for that. And that sucks. That's a really good reminder for me why I did this surgery and why I am trying to remain less focused on the scale and the numbers, because look at what I can do now and look at like the things that open up for me now, that weren't really an option for me before. It was too difficult to do. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to because I have that desire that I've never had before. So that shows that I'm making progress in my life. Another thing that is going on, it's kind of been going on, has been in the background for a long, long time. My family has had a trip to Ireland planned. We were going to go in 2020. Guess what happened? The world fell apart in 2020, so that trip did not happen. But that is something that is in the works to happen next spring. So less than a year from now, we will be going there. And that's something that I am really, really looking forward to, again, because we're looking at doing hikes and like outdoor activities and things that prior to somewhat recently, I had no energy or ability to do. I went to Ireland when I was in college. I had a class trip, and and we went there for like 3 weeks, I think it was. And I missed out on several things because I physically was unable to keep up with people for quite a few of the activities and hikes that they did. And so that's something that I've always told myself, like, if I ever get back to Ireland, I'm not letting that happen again. And now that I've lost so much weight and I have the ability and the motivation and the um, like, just I guess the motivation is the best way to describe it. Like, I want to, the energy to go out and do that. That is what I'm planning on doing now. Is like really taking advantage of that. So I don't know how interesting that is to people viewing on my channel. Um, I really enjoy that aspect of kind of exploring what my life is like now, and it might not be that interesting or that much of an understanding when I'm doing that on my channel, just because people don't really know like what it was like before and why this is so different. So it's like, cool, you went and did a thing. But for me, I lived a very, very sedentary lifestyle. And so doing a thing is a big deal now. So I very much like putting those videos together. I have noticed that they don't necessarily get the same kind of views and the same kind of interest as some of the other like update videos and things like that. But I'm going to still continue to put those out there as I experience things and try to put together more of a comparison to like what my life was like before and what it's like now, losing almost 175 pounds. So I will be putting those things out. I've kind of fallen back on putting out some of those research videos, and my video that I put out there a while ago about like vulnerability and things, I kind of touched on it. Um, I want to kind of shift to just being my experience with things. I mean, I've done that the whole time, obviously, but people seem to really care, like what I'm going through specifically and what I'm experiencing and what my stats are and things like that, versus like the researched videos. And although I like to sprinkle those in there so that people can find them when they're doing research and things like that. I'm not sure how comfortable I am doing that all the time. And part of the reason for that is that I don't want to be seen as like an authority figure or a voice for certain bariatric topics. I am no expert. And I've tried to make that pretty clear, but I also, you know, occasionally will get comments and occasionally get people who point out that I am not a doctor and I'm not, you know, an expert in those things. And although I try to make that pretty clear, I think it surprises people sometimes that they're like, well, you're not a doctor. Like, yeah, I know. I'm just trying to give you my point of view for what I'm experiencing, but also, more importantly, the research that I've done. And so I don't want to be seen as or make it seem like I am an expert on any topic, regardless of the amount of research that I've done. And I think I've come to terms now with the fact that if people are finding my videos because they're researching either weight loss surgery in general, bariatric surgery, or bariatric surgery in Mexico or things like that, then they're the kind of people who are inclined to do research, and they're the ones who are probably putting information out there or looking for information out there rather, to include in their research. And if that's the case, then they probably know some of that information already, or at least are fully capable of finding it themselves. And so I found that although I can put that information out there, I don't think it's benefiting the people that I want it to benefit. And that is like the huge population of people in those uh, Facebook support groups, for example. I've talked about them many times before. I've talked about my disappointment in Mexico Bariatric Center for not only the Facebook page being their only real source of you know, community and information after surgery, but also that it's very, very poorly managed. And one update that I wanted to make sure that you guys knew is one of the best things that I've ever done for myself is stop going to Facebook page daily. So I used to scroll through Facebook daily, usually once or twice a day. I, like anybody, right? I grab my phone and I'm like scrolling through stuff and reading things, and it would infuriate me. It would get me very, very upset. I'm the kind of person that gets that way anyway. I get really worked up and riled up about things. So I know that that's not good for me to scroll through social media sometimes. But the amount of misinformation, the amount of stuff out there that people are getting wrong, or the bad advice people are giving, or the questions. I think that was the biggest thing, is like these questions people will ask that are just like you haven't researched at all. It's like a 100% common thing everybody goes through, and you're like, oh my God, has anybody experienced this? I'm going crazy. Like, you haven't done a single bit of research and you went through with this surgery. That gets me irritated, just because I feel like I cannot understand being in that position. I wanted to absorb as much information as possible before I went into this, feeling like I could be as prepared as possible. And so I don't relate with somebody who just kind of like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just here for the ride, and then they get confused and they get scared at different things that are happening because they don't know what to expect. And so I would say it's because I have a huge amount of empathy that I get so upset because all these people are upset, and it could have been avoided. I was like, totally. That's the best way I can try to pump myself up for that. It's probably way more judgmental than that, but the point is like it's so avoidable, and I watch so many people on social media not try to be prepared when they go into this stuff. So I took Facebook off my phone. That was one of the big things that I did this last month. I just decided, I find myself scrolling through Facebook randomly and getting worked up over stuff that is not worth getting worked up over. It's not my life. If people are doing those things, that's what they're going to do. It's not my life, it's not my decision, and it's not my job to make sure everybody is well prepared before their surgery. It's absolutely not. I don't want it to come off like I'm trying to do that. And I found myself doing that a lot. I found myself commenting on those pages a lot, trying to give my expertise from what I've experienced and what I've researched to try to better prepare people, and it would just get drowned out in all these other comments that were just, it wasn't worth my time, and that's not the kind of thing that I want to portray. So I took it off my phone, and I decided that I was not going to scroll through that, except for like maybe very randomly if I'm at my computer, physically at my computer, having to log into Facebook and do it that way. So my time on Facebook has been very, very limited because of that. And I love that. It has been so good for my mental health. And that's something that I did years ago. A couple years ago, I took Facebook off my phone, and I actually like paused, however you want to say it. I like paused my account so that it wasn't something that was available unless I like logged back in and opened it back up. And for work, I actually had to do that. I have to do social media stuff for work. So I was kind of forced to get back into Facebook. I can't just kind of close my account and let it sit there. I have to do stuff for it, which was kind of a bummer. But limiting that social media exposure has really, really helped me. So just passing that along, if you find yourself getting like really worked up over stuff, or worried about things, or just overexposure to like negativity on social media and stuff, take it off your phone for a while. See if that helps, because it really helped me. I have a couple comments here, so I want to make sure that I am watching the chat because that's something I don't do very well. I love that people ask the group questions instead of asking your doctors. It drives me nuts. Then there's the keyboard warriors that attack you for not eating the way that they find right to do so. That is one big thing that was really bothering me. The number of medical questions that I feel Mexico Bariatric Center should put a stop to. Certain medical questions should have comments disabled, and they should say, hey, reach out to our medical liaison, which they've been doing better. I will say they've been doing better at that, and they have been, that the admin has been putting out, hey, reach out to our medical liaison with this question. The problem is I really feel like they should stop the comments on things like that, because all you get is speculation from people who have no idea what's going on, no medical training, no background, and they just continue. And there's hundreds sometimes of comments that are just confusing and sometimes dangerous. I used the example several times of the thread that I saw once where somebody was worried about a blood clot after surgery, and they literally did not go to the doctor. They did not reach out to the medical liaison. They just took a few people, most people said, you need to go to the doctor and get this checked out. A blood clot is no joke. If you think you have a blood clot, you really need to get evaluated. But a few people were like, oh, it's probably this or it's probably that. They took those because they are much more comforting for somebody than to think they need to go to the emergency room. They took those and they're like, I'm going to wait on it for a little bit and I'll contact my doctor later. Thanks, everyone. And I don't know if that person's okay. I don't know. But in my opinion, those comments should have been stopped immediately as soon as people started giving advice like, hey, massage your leg. That's dangerous. That's something that you should never do if you suspect you have a blood clot. You don't want to dislodge that clot and have it go to your heart or your lungs or something. Like, I mean, I don't know why they would allow stuff like that. Those are the kinds of things that get me worked up. And then you have the people, like you're saying, who want to police what you're eating. And ultimately, you know, my viewpoint is about moderation. And although I need to keep weight loss in mind, so I do have to keep, the kinds of foods that I'm eating and the calories and how much energy I am expending. I need to keep those things in mind because weight loss just can't happen without me thinking about it. I would love for that to happen, but it doesn't work for me. I have to actually try at it, right? So I have to at least keep those things in mind, and calories are one of the bigger things to keep in mind. But I'm still all about moderation and finding that balance where it's livable. And there are so many people in these groups that advocate cutting out foods entirely. And my personal experience, I am self-diagnosed with a binge eating disorder. So I do acknowledge I don't have like an official diagnosis for this, but I hit all of the requirements in the DSM for it. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that it's probably pretty accurate. I don't like self-diagnosing, but that one I feel like is a pretty good one to say, yeah, I probably had this issue. And with an eating disorder like that, with binge eating, I can't approach it that same way. Not only that, that's not good for anybody. Restriction overall is not good for anybody. And there's a lot of statistics that show that. So when people are like, you should never be eating this, that, and the other thing after surgery, it's like, that didn't work for me beforehand. Why would that work for me after surgery? I could not fully restrict certain foods and eat only healthy before surgery. Why? Why do you seem to think that that's something that I will have 100% control over and willpower to do after surgery? Because that's a brain issue mostly, and that's not going to do anything when it comes to the surgery itself. And so having that mindset and making people feel bad for eating certain things after surgery when it's food, you guys. We're just talking about food, especially if you're balanced in all other things in your life. That gets me really worked up. So that's one reason I pulled way back from social media. Um, yeah, every place has a nurse on call. People prefer Facebook. It's true. I don't understand why. I will see. I'm sorry. I'm like really have a really itchy nose. It's probably all the um like COVID stuff. It's like I don't want to start like sneezing. Um, I've noticed that people will spend time to type out a question on Facebook and wait for responses when you could spend way less time and have way more accurate results if you just Google it. And you look for like reputable answers. I'm not really sure why people prefer. There's something comforting, I think, with having like a real person answer you, but in that process, you're losing credibility, and that's not good enough for me. So I guess people are comforted knowing that a real person is giving their advice on something, but I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want a real person giving me advice when they don't really know what they're talking about, unless we're talking about a specific question that is like, what is your experience with this? Like, if you're looking for somebody's specific experience, then yeah, that would be great. But if you're asking a broad, like medical question or something that could be answered appropriately through Google or a nurse line or the medical liaison at Mexico Bariatric Center or those things, like just ask the person who knows. I don't know why people they do the same thing with the coordinators. I'm not hearing back from my coordinator. It's been 4 hours. Can you guys give me answers to this stuff? It's like, why is it so hard for you to just wait for an answer from the person who's the expert on this? But anyway, um, I'm a researcher and planner too, and the groups drive me crazy with the questions that could be answered with a Google search or call to their doctor. Yeah, exactly. It's like there are so many better ways to answer those questions. So I feel like honestly, I'm not joking. I'm not just trying to put it out there as like, something that everybody should do. I think that my mental health is better because I'm not on Facebook all the time. And that's a big part of it. It's also it's bad advice, and you get a lot of people's experiences that they mean well, but you inadvertently are comparing yourself to those people. So as people are posting their progress and their stats and how much weight they've lost or they haven't lost or whatever, you are inadvertently comparing yourself to those people, and I think it can create a really negative atmosphere where you want to be positive for somebody's successes, right? And you want to praise them, but at the same time, if you're not in a good mental space for that, and seeing their success will make you doubt your own success, that's not worth it. It's not worth it. So it's really about identifying where like our personal head spaces are at, and is this a good thing for me to take part in? And I found that it's not, especially right now with me logically in my brain saying don't pay attention to the scale. You can see and feel that your body's changing. You have so much more energy. You can do things better than before. Like, I have all of these reasons why I'm doing great. And then just little tiny things in the background that are like, but you're still at 200 pounds. It's like, who cares? It's really, really hard to combat that. And if you are adding in social media that is making it harder for me to get past that mentally and just be happy with my own progress, then it's not worth being on social media. I scroll through Instagram. It's a little bit more positive in my experience, and I don't have as many like triggering, experiences with it. But I'm not very like active on there. If you guys follow me, I very rarely post. I'm just not really into the social media scene, and YouTube is kind of the way that I put stuff out there and the way that I consume things, and that's pretty much it. So that's what I stick to. The other thing that I started was I started therapy. And so I had been talking about trying and looking for a therapist, and that was a priority for me, and I did start that. Uh, I was unable to find somebody who specialized in eating disorders or bariatric surgery or things like that. I am running into an issue where I'm sure a lot of people can relate if you've been looking into therapy yourself. Nobody's available, nobody's taking new clients. And so any of the experts that I was looking at were not taking new patients. And that became really difficult for me as I was struggling to find somebody, anybody, you know, who would hopefully take my insurance, but more importantly, kind of know that frame of reference. What I ended up doing is going back to a therapist that I had seen a couple years ago after my dad died. So he's actually pretty familiar with who I am and kind of some of the things that we had talked about before. Most of those sessions were about grief and loss and dealing with family issues after my dad died. And he does not specialize in anything like bariatric or eating disorder or anything like that. But I have a rapport with him. And so I figured since he was taking me as a client and he would schedule with me, that I would start there. And if I don't feel I'm quite getting at what I need to get at, then I will expand, but at least I can get in with somebody. So that's what I started. I've had several sessions now, and I cannot tell you, even though we haven't really delved into too much in terms of the weight loss and you know the intrusive food thoughts and you know anything involving like this process. We've been talking about some other things because there's a lot. I think all of us have a lot of different things that we could probably benefit from therapy on, and that's the boat I'm in. I have a lot of different things going on. So we've been talking about, you know, various other things, but the weight off of my shoulders, the weight off of my chest, being able to talk with somebody and just feel like somebody's actually like listening is amazing. And so that's a number one like regret that I have is that I didn't really start this sooner. And knowing what I know now, I would go into this surgery experience. I would go into everything with a therapist like on hand, and already like scheduled to go forward with me through the process, probably starting in pre-op because there's stuff that starts there, that starts dredging up, you know, thoughts about food, but also you know, it messes with your hormones. And I think we've talked about this before. It really, really messes with your hormones to have, you know, this quick, massive weight loss. And if you haven't seen like in the prior videos that I've done on this and stuff, your fat cells, they hold on to estrogen. And so as you're losing fat cells, they will release estrogen. And so you get, you know, quite a bit of a spike when it comes to, you know, these hormonal issues. So like I broke out around my mouth like a lot right after everything, and then you know mood swings and things like that. So yeah, starting with probably the pre-op process, I would have had somebody that I was like going into this process with who could follow me through the whole thing. You know, hindsight's 2020. If I had done that, man, I would be set. I'd be like, I'd be having an easy time. I just really think that is so beneficial, and um, I would have done that had I known. I knew to expect like you know emotional things happening and this to be a mentally taxing process, but I don't you don't know the extent until you get into it. And so that's the number one piece of advice that I can give, is to make sure that you're keeping that in mind and you're jumping forward with things as you see them presenting themselves. So those things have been big updates for me. Really feeling a little bit better, really feeling like I'm, you know, able to process what's going on. A big thing that I mean, I don't want to keep I do want to keep driving home the point, but like the mental health aspect of this is so much more difficult than people give it credit for. And I feel like I'm fairly lucky to be a year and a half into this process and just now running into this, but now it's just like very, very present in my life that this mental health stuff is really tough. And I thought I was working on it before, and I probably was to some extent, but nothing like what I need to like process everything. And when I sit to think, because I updated my Instagram. I always update like my current weight loss on that profile, and I was at a total since the start of my pre-op. I think is what I'm using. Yeah, since the start of pre-op, I've lost 174.8 pounds. And I was like, wow, that's almost 175. And it really struck me how much weight that is. Like, that's a lot of weight. That's an entire overweight person that I've lost. And I just don't think our brains really give that enough credit because it's so hard to fathom. Like, that is so much weight in a short amount of time. There is almost no way to truly like be prepared for that. I don't think there's any real way. And that's why body dysmorphia is such a big problem because our brains cannot adapt to how fast things are changing. So when I sit and I think of 175 pounds and that I can't even lift that. I mean, I can't even, I would struggle walking around with that. And I did for a long time. Those are things that we don't give it credit for how tough that is when we deal with emotionally what that means with that weight loss. And it's not just body dysmorphia and I look different and I have saggy skin and whatever. It's the change in my personality is happening too. Um, the more energy I get, the more desire that I have to do things in my life, the more doors open for me that were closed when I had 175 extra pounds on me, the more my priorities in my life shift and the more I start to change as a person. When you have a lot of doors closed to you and there's only a certain amount of things that you can do. For example, I played a lot of video games prior to my weight loss. That was something that I could socially do with people that I very much enjoyed. That was sedentary and it didn't require a lot from me. And I would play a lot of video games. And I've noticed that I don't do that as much anymore. Not that I don't enjoy it, but there's so many more doors open to me now that I can walk through that I want to, rather than sitting down at my computer and playing, a video game for several hours. That has affected the relationship that I have with people that I play games with, friends that was the interaction that I had with them. I rarely talk to anymore. That was something that my fiance and I did a lot together, is we would play games together. And we're doing other things now, but it's something to consider. I am changing as a person. My interests are changing, my abilities are changing, my personality to an extent. I'm still the same person, but I'm also not. And I think people think that like you're just the same exact person, you just weigh less, and it's not the same. I was hindered by my weight in a lot of ways that didn't allow me to become the person maybe that I wanted to be, because I just couldn't do those things. I couldn't fathom having those things in my life. And so those are big changes. Again, the mental health part of this, that's a big change that is way, way more profound than just like, how do you deal with, that I physically look different or that I have, loose skin. When I wear an outfit like this, for example, you can see that when like my arms. What are these? When my arms are just sitting like they, I get loose skin that bunches in a way. And if I'm out, doing things or whatever, I do have skin. It's really tough when I like look in the mirror, for example, and if I do this and like let the skin hang, you can see like the real width of what my arm is. But when I do this, my arm looks very similar to the way that it did when I was, you know, overweight, because it's laying flat against my body, so it's spread out. This is all just skin that just hangs here. And so my actual arm is not that wide, but it looks that way, you know, when I'm just relaxing. Those are things that, um, yeah, they're tough to like try to mentally deal with, but it's nowhere near the same as like I'm a different person than I was when I went into this. What does that mean for everybody who is, you know, involved with me? So yeah, this is why I focus so much on the mental health aspect of it, because I think people boil it down to like, oh yeah, it's really tough to like, you know, not look the same anymore and like mentally deal with that. And that's not what we're talking about in all cases. So gosh, I'm like, I wasn't sure actually how long I'd be able to do this before like my voice would just give out on me. So I'm doing okay. Um, so that's something that the therapy and getting off of Facebook, I think has really, really helped. I really, really think that that has given me an opportunity to like chill out a little bit, and it's not quite in my face as much anymore. And it gives me a chance to think about myself and not in regards to other people, because I think that that social media stuff really is, it's all about other people, and then you're less like reflective in your own situation and how to deal with those things, that you're experiencing, you know, it, as like yourself. How do you internally like reflect on it? I think that reflection is really important, and it's not just in regards to what are other people experiencing and how does that relate to me. It's very much internally, how do I feel about this process, how does this affect me, and how can I deal with that. And I'm still working on that. So those are some, wow, so those are some pretty big updates that I've been going through. So that's kind of what I'm going through right now. I feel a lot better about it. I've also been working really hard because I just found this like motivation to clear stuff up, like physically, like in my yard. Like I'm off of the deep subject now, like physically clear stuff out of my yard. But like there's some catharsis that comes with that too. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, where sometimes it feels really nice to just like purge, right? You'll go and like spring cleaning is a good example. You'll go and like donate a whole bunch of stuff that you've been holding on to, like take it to Goodwill or something. And it feels really nice to just kind of like clear out, be a little bit more minimalistic. And I'm feeling that way. Occasionally it just feels like really nice to me to like clear things out. And right now I'm feeling that way about my yard. So my yard is completely overgrown, and it has been since we moved into this house. It's just been gradually getting worse, because I've been way overwhelmed and not sure how to tackle it. But I found some motivation and I found some desire to just like make something my own and just clear everything out. So I've been working really hard in the yard doing that. But our weather hasn't been super agreeable. So as we get better and better weather, I am outside. I am, you know, taking hedge trimmers and the weed whacker and just attacking a whole bunch of things in the yard. And I feel like it's making me like stronger. I can go out there and handle like longer times doing that, and it feels just really good to get that stuff done, chip away at things, that I haven't been able to get to before because I haven't had the energy or the ability physically to do them. It feels really nice to get to those things, and I'm like, I'll do that someday when I have the ability. Well, that's now I have the ability. So much changes. I'm almost 9 months post-op. I feel a big difference in what I want for my life along with my body. Yeah, and you know, it makes me think of, people like to scare each other with the statistics on divorce after bariatric surgery. Um, and I've done a lot of research on it, but I haven't done like a full video on that, partially because I think there's still a big lack of research in that area. but the overall numbers that people say, there's a 50% and sometimes 80% you'll see people throw around divorce rate after bariatric surgery, are coming from specific studies that are very, very small, and in another country, might I add. I think they're Swedish studies. So you have to take those with a grain of salt, right? You can't just take any study that was done and be like, this is a thing that can be applied to everybody. You have to look at the control groups. You have to look at the number of overall people that are involved in a study, and you have to look at those cohorts. If it's, someone in a different country, does it directly relate to people here, to your situation? So, that being said, though, the reason I bring it up is because I think there is some truth to that the rates are probably slightly higher in the bariatric community than they are, in the general population, because you're changing as a person. And like you're saying, you are feeling a difference in what you want for your life. And when you are with somebody, a partner in your life that you had, a connection there and some agreement, and then all of a sudden you're changing and they don't, want to, or aren't capable of changing with you, that causes problems. And so, when people get all worried about the divorce rates and whether or not they're much higher, I think people need to boil that down much smaller and just look at your relationships and your communication and do that internal, figuring out with yourself internally. How am I changing? How are my priorities changing? What do I want in my life? And have those conversations with your partner. Is this something that we can do together? Because these are profound changes that people don't talk about. I don't see people talking about these profound changes. I see people talking about mental health, occasionally. They don't give it the credit that is due in terms of how prevalent that is in your life, after surgery. But they don't talk about these profound things. I really feel like that's way, way more worth somebody's time. This is something that I've learned. How do I say this without being a total jerk? um, there is a huge problem. I've never experienced it myself. I'll start by saying I've never experienced this, but there is a huge problem with, people who get a lot more like attention and traction on social media, for example, for having bariatric surgery, having a lot of people tell them that they took the easy way out. I know a lot of people who have experienced people saying similar things. Oh, that's the easy way out. I don't want to get into the whole conversation on why that's a really stupid a really stupid thing, to say, and viewpoint to have. But, I have been very grateful that nobody in my life and nobody on social media has told me that I have like taken the easy way out of something. That being said, and this is where I need to be careful about how I phrase it, there is a huge number of people who go into this process thinking that it's going to be easy, that it's going to be the easy way out. What I noticed when I started the research for this, and decided that I was going to look into whether or not bariatric surgery was something I wanted to do, was that it is way more common than I realized. Not just bariatric surgery, but like, medical tourism, for example, going to another country, not even just Mexico. I think there's a whole bunch of them in like Lithuania and Turkey, that you can go to. There are medical tourism things set up for bariatric surgery all over the world. It is way more common of a surgery than I thought. I really, really honestly went into this thinking that gastric bypass was, I don't want to say rare, but like not super common. Since I've had surgery and since I'm open about it, I've actually met several like clients and things where they or their spouses have gone through the surgery. I had no idea, like either sleeve or bypass. It's so common, which means there's a lot more people doing this than I think we all realize. And with that vast number of people that are doing things, you're going to have some people who do it a lot smarter and some people who do it a lot stupider than others. And I think that there is a huge population of people who think that bariatric surgery is the easy way out and also decide to do it because they think it's going to be easy. And that's something that I have been struggling with. I think a huge number of people are like me, and they did it because it was kind of their last resort, and they tried everything else and they researched the hell out of it, and they are taking a risk to do something drastic to help their lives. But I see a lot of people who think it's going to be easier, and those are the people that are very vocal on social media and stuff, and they're the ones who are like, I don't understand, why is this so difficult, I don't understand why this isn't working for me, I don't understand why I'm so sad all the time, I don't, they're just, they thought that it was going to be a lot easier. And so I think that that is something that is the reason why we don't see a lot of these tougher subjects talked about enough. I think some of those people don't share their experience, and they're probably embarrassed that they thought it was going to be an easy solution and then it wasn't, and then they don't really talk about it. And then I've talked about before where it's the dramatic, positive stuff that gets you viral on like Instagram and stuff. People don't want to sit here listening to an hour-long live stream where I'm mostly talking about mental health issues that I didn't know I was going to talk about. So people aren't as interested in that. They are interested in the quick TikToks of, I lost 200 pounds with weight loss surgery and I'm so much better than I was before. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do that too. And you just get this like plethora of people who jump into these things and they're not really sure about it. So my goal has always been to be very open about what I'm going through and to share my personal experience so that it can at least be one example of some of the stuff that maybe people don't talk about enough. It's a big life decision that you're making. It's not something that, in my opinion, you can make after talking with them for a couple weeks on whether or not they'll approve a surgery for you, and then schedule a date and then go forward with it, because I think those people are the ones that struggle. And then you sit here and you read all these statistics about people gaining their weight back and struggling with things and not having success after surgery. And I think it's just because there's a vast number of people who jump into it without the research and the knowledge to be successful long term. And those are the people that you see who are like, this was the worst thing I ever did. Like, well, yeah, you didn't do anything you were supposed to do. You didn't do the research. You didn't put in the work to make sure, that you had everything in mind. That being said, I mean, there's a scale with everything, right? And like sometimes people do run into issues that are beyond their control and stuff. So this is by no way, saying that everybody fits nicely in certain categories, but I just feel like there's such a huge number of people that are actually going through with the surgery that we don't really realize that. We think it's a small community of people, and it's really not. And that skews the numbers and the information that we get. So hopefully I said that in an okay way. I didn't think I had expectations it would be easy and the weight would just fall off, but it turns out deep down I kind of did. And it has been anything but easy or really fast. That is a really, really good point. One of the things that has bothered me the most about, again, the Facebook groups and stuff is the people who've said, I've only lost 25 pounds in the last month. What am I doing wrong? And I just have this deep sadness and deep anger for those people because I understand, but I also am just so like furious. Is like, did you think that you were going to lose 100 pounds in 2 months? Like, that's not realistic or healthy. But I think that is a deep desire for a lot of us, is to drop this weight. When I first decided that I would look into bariatric surgery, I think I've said this story before, but I went outside. It was a really rainy, horrible day. And it was the evening, and I had to put the ducks away, because I have ducks, and I put them away in their coop at night so they're safe, and I let them out in the morning. And I was putting them away, and it was really rainy and gross, and it was super muddy out there. And I was falling all over the place. I was slipping and falling in the mud. They weren't listening. They were going every way I didn't want them to go. They weren't going into the coop for some reason. Every once in a while they do that. Although this is completely side note. I used to have like 16 of them and they were just chaotic. I have 6 now and they mind very well and they know exactly what the routine is. So I think I just had too many ducks. But the point is that they weren't listening. They were all over the place. I was literally running in circles around an obstacle in there because they wouldn't go the direction I needed, and I was getting out of breath. And I finally put them away for the night, and I went inside and I went into my bedroom and I sat on my bed and I just bawled. I was crying really heavily. And I was like, this was too difficult. It was too difficult for me to do this, to go out there to try to wrangle my ducks. Just walking around in circles and like, trying to corral them made me so out of breath. I couldn't physically, like, I was so tired. And I can't express to you how tired I was and how I knew this is not okay. That was the moment that I realized I need to look into something. I need help because this is too much. Um, and I started looking into stuff. Um, I'm trying to remember exactly why I was saying the story because I go into the story and now I forgot why I was saying it. I see these people and they're like, you know, I I have been struggling with my weight for a really long time. I did the surgery. I've lost like 20 pounds in the last month. What am I doing wrong? I'm not losing weight. And I'm like, I struggled for years. And when I was doing well and I lost 15 pounds in a month, I was like, that is ecstatic. You see things online all the time that say lose 10 pounds in a month if you take our pill or whatever. Why is it that losing 10 pounds in a month is like, wow, I need to buy that product? Whereas people after surgery are like, I've only lost 20 pounds this month. What's wrong with me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing is wrong with you. That's fantastic weight loss. That is well beyond what normal weight loss is. But I think there's something deep in the back of our minds where we think we're going to it's just going to fall off of us. And logically, we might not think that, that that's our expectation. But like you're saying, maybe there is a part of us that have this expectation, and then we're holding ourselves accountable and we're holding ourselves to this expectation that isn't realistic and it never was. I've been trying to keep in mind that 10 to 15 pounds a month was fantastic, and I certainly am not hitting that now. I'm certainly not at that point anymore. I'm basically maintaining, and in those situations, I need to be very, very happy with myself that I'm not gaining weight. I'm maintaining. And there is a point when my body will struggle really, really hard to keep losing weight. I like to think I'm not there yet. I like to think that I still have a little bit more before I'm really gonna like struggle to lose the last bit of weight that I want to lose. But regardless, there will be a point when I hit that point, and at that point, how many times can I say point? At that point, I will be ecstatic if I can maintain the weight loss. I've had a couple of people recently make comments. I think it's mostly on Instagram, but make comments for me to remember like where I was and that I like how excited I would be to be at this point. Or like to keep in mind that there are some people that like where I'm at now is their goal weight. And I try to be very careful with how I present things, and there is a really tough middle ground, I think, to be on here because I want to keep in mind what everyone else is experiencing and to know that like my past self would be ecstatic to be where I'm at right now. And honestly, my goal weight for years and years and years and years was 180, and I'm really close to that. I mean, I'm 20 pounds away from that. So, in terms of like, like that's not according to like the BMI or anything my doctor has said, but that was just an arbitrary weight that I had chosen. And my progress towards that goal has been phenomenal. So I do want to keep that in mind, and I want to keep in mind that some people are just trying to get where I am. Some people can't even fathom losing 175 pounds. Like, I want to keep all of that in mind, but I also don't want to invalidate like the feelings and the process that I'm going through. And I don't want to fall into the trap of feeling like I've lost 175 pounds and that is phenomenal, and therefore I can stop and be happy with my progress. There's a very fine line to tread here. I don't want to feel like I've reached a point where I can just be like, oh, I'm happy maintaining here because I have exceeded what is statistically expected after gastric bypass, and therefore I'm good to go. I am still overweight. In fact, I'm still considered obese. I am 5 feet 4. I'm 5 foot 4 inches tall, and so being 200 pounds is still very overweight for someone my height. Um, I am very happy with my progress, but I don't want to fall into a trap where I feel like I've done very well and therefore I don't want to feel like I can make more progress, because ultimately, whether or not we want to talk about the BMI scale or what's appropriate, by all sense of reality, if I wasn't 383 pounds prior, if I were just me existing now, people would say I need to lose weight, because I do objectively need to lose weight. I'm still objectively obese. So I want to be happy with my progress, but I also am very aware that I have more to go. And finding that middle ground to make myself happy and make other people happy is like near impossible, right? So when people tell me like, you need to keep in mind that, you're at someone else's goal weight, like, that's great. I'm still obese. I don't really, that's fantastic. And I hope that you have the success that I've had as well. But I need to keep my health in mind. And I've made huge strides, and I am so much healthier than I was before, but I'm not there yet. And I need to keep my health in mind as I'm moving forward to try to, keep a little bit more progress and get, as closer to that healthy BMI that my doctor is looking for as possible. So that's just something that I've been I've been trying to keep in mind, and struggling with a little bit sometimes, because it's like, I want to put my experience out there. This is just the nature of putting your stuff out into a public sphere, right? For people to comment on and look at. I want to put my stuff out there. I want to talk about my journey and the good and the bad, and the things that I struggle with, so that I can just put my experience out there. But finding that middle ground with making sure I am keeping other people's, thoughts and feelings in mind as I move forward, um, is tough. I don't ever want to be in that position where I'm um, 145 pounds and beating myself up because I can't get down to 135. And like that and if I am ever like this in the future, you're allowed to link me this video and be like, you said that you never want to do this. But I don't want to be that person who is upset over the last 10 pounds, the last 15 pounds. I think there is a point when you have to be realistic and know where your body's settling, and where it is healthy for you to be, where maybe you have a little bit of extra weight, but like, depending on your age and everything else going on in your life and your specific situation, I never want to be the person who's out there like, you know, pretty thin and pretty healthy and like, I'm so fat, I need to lose 10 pounds. I never want to be that person. that person I have a hard time understanding because I'm not in their mindset. But I can easily see how you can get there and try to balance, like, you know, what your reality is. If that person is 10 pounds overweight and they feel really fat and awful and like they feel awful about themselves, then, you know, I don't want to take their experience away from them. But I don't want to be that person who's nitpicking, you know, like 10, 15 pounds because of the position that I'm in specifically, which is if I nitpick 10 pounds and I've lost 200, like, there's a perspective issue there that I'm not acknowledging. So I want to put out there, like, that's why I don't want to be that person, because at that point I feel like that's not an issue with 10 pounds. It's an issue with perspective, and like how far I've come. In addition to that, um, I think people forget sometimes that loose skin weighs poundage. um, some people can lose 10, sometimes even 20 pounds of skin when they go through skin removal surgery. And so if you're the kind of person who hasn't gotten like skin removal surgery and you're like really upset over 10, 15 pounds, like that right there could be a big chunk of why you're not seeing what you expect to see. Like, you're perfectly healthy. You just have extra weight from skin, and it's not fat that is extra on you. And so that's something to keep in mind too, is like, as I get closer and closer to what I would consider my goal weight, like, I have to keep in mind that some of that is going to be just skin that is on me. And I have no plans as of right now to have skin removal surgery. I watched I watched somebody go through their skin removal surgery, like, just it was like a week 1 and 2 update that they posted on YouTube. And I almost made myself throw up. I was just like, oh, like, I get really, really nauseous by watching certain like medical procedures and things on like on video. It's just the way that I am. It's the same reason why I'll pass out if I watch them take my blood. Like, just watching a needle go in me or anyone else makes me physically nauseous. So I was like, well, I'm gonna watch to see what her recovery is like, and I was like almost getting sick. I don't know that I could physically get through skin removal surgery like without just being so sick and so miserable. And I've heard it's a really tough recovery. Um, I am feeling pretty fine with my floppy skin. There are times when I feel like, yeah, I really wish that I didn't have this. And I'm going to feel that way as I lose more and more weight, because it's going to get, you know, looser, and it's going to look different. Um, so I may change my mind, but as of right now, I have no intentions of getting any skin removal surgery. And so for that, I'm going to need to prepare for that being, you know, something most likely in my life for an extended amount of time, but also that there's going to be extra weight that comes with that. I will probably never hit 130 pounds according to the BMI scale. One, because that's just insane to me. I cannot fathom myself weighing that much. That is so small. I just can't. But in addition to that, I will probably never hit that just because I will have loose skin that will get in the way of that. And I would be way, way too small if I hit that and had all this loose skin. So, does that make sense? I don't know. Anyway, I have gone on for about an hour now. Unless anybody else has any topics or questions in particular, I didn't get as much notice out for this live stream as I was hoping to get out, because I didn't decide officially until yesterday morning that I was going to go ahead and do a live stream. So I didn't get enough like stuff out there in terms of like if people had questions for a Q&A and stuff. So if anybody has any questions or anything at this point, I would be happy to stick around to chat about anything in particular. Otherwise, I think I will slowly start to wrap this up. Again, I'm not sure that I got a text and I just completely lost my train of thought. I wasn't sure about this like what I was going to do this week because of COVID and everything. So I'm very, very glad that I'm starting to feel better. My plan for the video this week that will be next week is clothing comparison. So it's a combination of like a clothing haul from some recent clothes that I purchased. I haven't done a lot of like full body shots on my YouTube. I will put full body pictures and stuff somewhat often on my Instagram. So if you're interested in those kinds of things, again, I'm not super, super active on Instagram, but feel free to follow me there if you are interested in that. But on YouTube, I have a tendency to just sit like this and not really have a lot of like full body stuff. So I'm hoping to put together more of a full body, just kind of what kind of clothes I'm trying to wear now. One of the issues I'm running into is that I don't know what my style is. And it's really hard to like figure out what my style is because I was stuck in the box of like having to wear what was available to me in a plus size, 3X kind of situation, whereas now I have a lot more available to me, but A, I don't really know what my style is, and B, right now, why is it that the style is frumpy? Like I went to several stores and it's all weird boxy frumpy stuff that is not form fitting at all, not anything that helps me feel like I've lost weight. Like it's just really ugly. Like that's the aesthetic norm right now, is like Target and Old Navy and stuff all have these like really weird frumpy things. So I went shopping and I wasn't able to find a lot of things that I felt good about. But I did grab some things. This is actually one of my new shirts. So I'll show off some of that. But in addition to that, I wanted to show wearing some of the old clothes that I have kept, and kind of the difference between, the old stuff that I was wearing and how that fits me now versus the new stuff, and, how those fit me. So that's what I'm hoping to put out for you next week. So if that's interesting to you guys, yes. Okay, so you're interested in that kind of video. And yes, the colors are horrendous. I am not set up to appropriately do this. If I will set up my next live stream so that I can actually show like my screen and stuff. But like the stuff that is being sold at like Old Navy and Target right now in particular, is boxy and like flowy and like oversized. And like there's like a lot of oversized things that are really popular right now, which is sort of cool, I guess. But like for me, when I'm finally at a point where I feel like I want something more like form fitting and like shows off what I feel is like great progress for me, and I feel like I could pull that off now in my life. I don't Nobody's like selling it. So and then I went through and I did ThreadUp. If anybody's familiar with ThreadUp, it's basically like an online consignment shop, and I've run into the fact that they're like they sell any and every kind of brand, right? It's people sending in their clothes. And now I'm running into the issue where some things are listed as an XL and they are not, or like they're listed as a size 14 and they are definitely not compared to all the other size 14 things that I've tried on. So where I didn't really run into that before, which is a huge problem I know in women's sizing, it's all over the place. I am now, because I was shopping outside of brands that I'm normally used to, and they're all over the place. So I feel like I can't even do something like, ThreadUp or like a Stitch Fix, I think is one of those I could look into, because I can't guarantee they're actually going to freaking fit me. So I got all these things. It's like, these don't fit. Like I'm literally looking at a wool skirt that I got where I'm going to snip off the button and move it so that I can button this skirt, because it would fit me just fine and is listed as a size 14 and it doesn't even go around me. Like there's no way. It's got to be like a size 10 or something. It's insane. So so some of that stuff I'm hoping to share too. But yeah, some more like full body shots and just kind of like a comparison from like then to now and what that looks like with clothes, I think would be interesting, because it's a different world that I'm in now, when it comes to like how to style myself. And like I'm much more comfortable in certain clothes than I used to be in, But does that mean that I'm comfortable enough to like buy a bunch of it and like wear it out in public? Like I'm still struggling with some of that. So that's what I'm hoping to put together. If there are any other kinds of content that I don't normally cover, any types of things that you'd be interested in, I still like to do a broad range of different things. So if there's anything in particular that you think would be fun that I covered, let me know in a comment or reach out on Instagram or something, because I'm into doing all sorts of different types of videos. So just let me know what you guys are interested in. And as I sign off here, I just want to say thank you again for helping me hit 1,000 subscribers. I am not really sure how that happened. I feel um, really grateful that there's enough people that want to see more content and want to support me. And so I'm just very humbled that people care about my opinion or my experience at all. So thank you so much for helping support me. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And I will see you guys in the next one when I feel a little bit better. Bye, everybody.